Hey guys, welcome back to Whole Wellness. I'm Ann. Today we're talking about narcissists again because there's so much information out there, and as we learn and grow and go through the healing process, there's new information, new discoveries, new thoughts, new lessons. And as you may or may not know, depending on how new you are to my channel, I was inspired or propelled into therapy in 2020 after leaving a job and being gone from a job for over a year. That was an extremely toxic workplace, and I worked with two different narcissists on that job, as well as other unhealthy individuals in a very small office of 8 people. So I was in this job being completely ignorant about narcissism and what it was. One of the relationships was with a coworker that I really had nothing to do with. I did not work with directly. And the other coworker was accounts payable clerk. I was payroll, and so I was part of the accounting department, but I also did HR, human resources. So I kind of had an overlap with the accounting department and didn't work directly with the one coworker that was accounts payable clerk, but my direct manager was actually the chief operating officer. And this was a position that prior to me getting this position, I had worked for this company and worked for the COO several years before for 6 years. And he knew my skill set, and he knew my experience, and he knew my work ethic from working together prior for many years. And he actually reached out to me and said, hey, my payroll and HR person just quit. And I jumped on that opportunity. Little did I know that the AP clerk wanted to move into this full-time position and had become available, but she had no payroll experience, no HR experience. And my boss felt, and he actually asked me, and I said I was open to wherever he thought my skill set would be most beneficial. And he hired me and put me in the position of payroll and HR. Unbeknownst to me, that set the course for what happened on that job, because this coworker of mine, when she met me, and of course I'm ignorant about what narcissism is and everything like that, she was livid. It didn't matter who was going to be put in that position though, because they would have had a bullseye on their back no matter who it was, because that coworker of mine in the AP position, accounts payable, the accounting position, she was narcissist. She was a narcissist. Now, aside from that, so I come on the job completely ignorant, not having a clue. I'm nice to everyone. I'm professional, but I have no idea what I'm dealing with or what I'm getting into. Meanwhile, this person in marketing was also a narcissist, and she's actually the one that introduced me to what narcissism was, because she was the first one that pegged the AP person as a narcissist. And that was what started me on this investigative journey to find out what the bleep this topic was, what this character disorder was. And it lasted a long time, because in the beginning, I didn't have the slightest clue what it was. I didn't understand the research I was doing. It was very confusing. And narcissism overlaps a lot of other character and mood disorders. I'll admit some of the symptoms are overlapping. So it can be very confusing in the beginning to try to understand what you're dealing with and who you're dealing with. So after this marketing professional introduces to me, towards the end of this 5-year job experience that I had, I went on to investigate and learn and educate myself even more. But in the midst of this, I was completely ignorant, very confused, very stressed, a lot of anxiety. And I'm in HR trying to get everybody in the office to get along and have the common shared goal of teamwork, professionalism, courteousness, respect, growing the company, being a positive team, and so on and so forth, which was a failing mission, which I should have seen early on. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Those are for the other videos. You can watch and tune into what I learned about that. But my point of today's video is actually the truth that I have learned over the course of these last couple of years of my journey learning about narcissism and what it is. So originally, I was 100% convinced, and I knew and I recognized very early on this lady's jealousy, and it wasn't envy. It's not that she wanted the position and strived to be better and improved her skill. Oh no, she was vindictive and nasty and cunning, and she was smart. very intelligent, talented, smart person, but she was dishonest. She was manipulative. She was scheming. She was cunning. And I had no clue what I was dealing with. So in the beginning, I knew it was about jealousy. It was about her getting what I took from her at all costs and her getting back what she had lost to me. And I knew that early on. I knew that she was jealous, but I kind of rolled with the punches because I did believe at the time that she couldn't have my job. She couldn't have my job unless I left. I really believed that. So she proceeded to make my life at that job a living hell to get rid of me. But what I have learned since that time, because it got to the point where I'd had it up to here because the bosses were the epitome of enabling behavior. There was no protection. There was no fairness. There was no reasonableness. These executives were all men, and I'm sorry, I don't mean any offense towards men, but it was a very sexist environment. They believed that what was going on was a cat fight. Down to there may have been a portion of what they believed that had just simply to do with the bottom dollar, and she was a workhorse. She was willing to sacrifice everyone in her life, her husband, her 5 children, everything in her life, her marriage, her family, her house, her investments, everything. When I say everything, I mean everything for this job, for the position, to get ahead, to get this position that I had. I wasn't willing to do that. I had a family, I had a marriage, I had goals, I had a personal life, I had hobbies, I had interests outside of work, I had a normal, healthy, natural life. And I wasn't a workhorse. I wasn't willing to work 7 days a week, 65 hours a week for this company in order to butter up the bosses and manipulate the bosses into believing that I was more valuable than anybody else on the team. She was willing to do that. I wasn't. So that was a huge difference between us. And I believe to this day that that was a major factor in their decision to defend and protect her and not keep the office fair, reasonable, respectful, and professional. Case in point, there were numerous opportunities beginning with the very first year that I got a review when she lost her temper, threw her fit, yelled at the bosses, threatened to quit, and nothing. And right there, I'm just giving you an example. There were numerous opportunities like this for disciplinary action. And to this day, there is not a disciplinary action on her record at that employer. And there were numerous instances like that where she yelled, she screamed, she acted inappropriately, she cursed, she threw a temper tantrum, you name it. And there is nothing on file, no disciplinary action, no documentation. I have my own, but there's nothing that they permitted or allowed to be put in her file, even though these things did happen. They completely enabled her to behave in a manner that was unprofessional, disrespectful, unhealthy, in fact, toxic towards me, towards others in the workplace. And everybody tolerated it, turned the other cheek, and enabled her to behave in this way. So I resigned from that job. I'm like, I am not working for these people. It had nothing really to do with her. It had to do with them. We did not share the same values, clearly, and the same goals and the same vision for ourselves, our future, and the future of the company. So I resigned, was gone for a year, went to seek counseling. I've been on this healing journey, and fast forward to the current day, right? And I can't remember what I was doing, if I was out on a hike or driving to work or what I was doing, but I was thinking. I was lost in thought one day, as I usually am. And it dawned on me that this whole time, see, I've done a lot of research about narcissists. There's this quote that stands out in my memory that Dr. Romani said in an interview that she had with someone that I saw a long time ago. And she said something about, he asked the question, what is one telltale sign? Like, if there's one takeaway, how can you tell that someone's a narcissist? What sort of characteristics do they display? And she said, if I were to just pick one, because there's so many, and when you're looking to identify whether someone's narcissistic or not, you look for a lot of overlap. You look for, 3 or 4 different characteristics. It's not just any one given characteristic, because that characteristic or trait could apply to several different personality disorders or mood disorders. So you want to look for consistency and overlap in characteristics, and you want to read up and do the research yourself. So in this interview, he phrased it like, if I were self-aware, what would I ask myself to try to identify whether or not I tend to be a narcissistic individual? And she said, emotions? Ew, yuck. Everybody's talking about their emotions all the time, and it's just so ridiculous. It's getting out of control. And that was like the telltale sign that she said a narcissistic type of an individual would have about them, because they can't handle intimacy and connection and emotion, and especially empathy with regards to relationships or other people or interacting with other people. So I was ruminating on this thought and reverting back to this AP clerk, Beth was her name, that I worked with at the time. And I knew that Beth was jealous of me. I have known that since the beginning. I've known for a while that she had accused me of being too emotional and being too sensitive, as a narcissist will do. But a lot of other people who are not narcissists also tend to do that just as a scapegoat for their bad behavior. Doesn't necessarily mean they're narcissists. So we have to be careful of that. And I didn't automatically presume that she was a narcissist because she felt that way or accused me of these things. And so when I started thinking about the emotions aspect and the fact that she used to always accuse me of being too emotional and too sensitive, I got to the point where I was like, yeah, she was like super averse to emotions, any emotions. And I got it in my head somewhere along the way that Beth had a problem with emotions. She couldn't be in touch with her emotions. Emotions were incapable for her. And then I was walking or driving or whatever I was doing one day, and I was ruminating on that recently, and the light bulb went off. There was no aversion to emotions with her. What her aversion was to was vulnerability. Anything that made her feel less than, like shame, like jealousy, made her angry. And she definitely was in touch with her emotion of anger, because in almost every incident, she reacted with me in anger. Unnecessary, absolutely over the top temper tantrum anger. This was the norm for her. And what's so interesting about this is that she was very careful about how and when and who she would react with her anger with me in front of. And that's the strategy of a narcissistic type of an individual. They're very careful. They're very calculating. They're very cunning about who and where and when they react the way they do. It's all about control. It's all about trickery. It's all about them believing this false reality and being able to influence you in a way that makes you feel crazy and gaslit, and also gets you to believe how they believe, because all they want from you is compliance. They just need your cooperation to operate in the world that they're presenting in front of you and their reality. As long as you're okay with seeing things the way they see them, and you're not your own person and you don't have your own thoughts or opinions, then everything's going to be just hunky-dory for them. So when it comes to narcissistic people in your life, or people that you suspect are narcissists in your life, pay very close attention to fear, jealousy, and anger. Emotions in general, that label, that umbrella label that we like to use, is not limited to tears and pain and hurt and sorrow and sadness. There is also fear. There is also anger, and there is also jealousy. And the narcissists feel those emotions very strongly, and they are very much in touch with those emotions. In fact, I would venture to say that fear, jealousy, and anger are probably the primary emotions that a narcissist actually does feel. They express it almost 100% of the time as anger, which is why they rage, which is why they lie, because they're afraid, which is why they can turn it on and off. They're sweet 1 minute, they're buttering you up, they're love bombing. It's all about a manipulation tactic to get what they want, to get you to believe how they believe. It's never just about that blanket word emotions. It is much more complicated than that. So I caution you to pay attention if you have anyone in your life that is acting like this and you find yourself hearing or reading material that's telling you that a narcissist isn't in touch with their emotions. That's not wholly true. A narcissist is not in touch with those intimate type emotions like compassion and empathy and sensitivity and vulnerability. Those types of emotions that make us human, the vulnerabilities that we feel, and our ability to cry and our ability to show vulnerability and our ability to ask others what their opinion is or what their perspective is so that we can compromise and things like that. A narcissist is a person who's not in touch with their human vulnerabilities, and they are not in touch with compassion and empathy. However, they are very much in touch with jealousy and fear, and they will almost always, almost exclusively act, engage, and react with anger. Essentially, if I were to boil it down to just two behaviors, narcissist is either falsely excessively charming or angry. Let's admit, though, this is not an easy topic to study and research, though. It is very complex. Narcissists are just a big fat headache. It doesn't matter what emotions they have or they don't have or what they express or don't express. They are difficult people to deal with. So just be mindful, be present, trust yourself, and as always, take care of you. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Till next time, be well.